Hi everybody, welcome to JMQs tonight. I'm going solo again this week, but hopefully we'll have some of the team assembled together very, very soon. Obviously assembled using the instructions. We are going to be doing some updates on some projects tonight. We'll be looking at a brand new one and a book and just fielding your questions. This is very much your show as much as it is, I won't say my show, that sounds very conceited. It's very much your show as it is everybody's show. So if you've got some questions or some observations, then please do fire them away and we'll do our best to see if we can deal with them, essentially. It makes me sound like an agony aunt now. Oh, I'm certainly agony, that's one thing. So just going to say a quick hello to everybody who's watching, tuned in at the moment. God bless you all, you brave souls. John Patrick Houston, or John P. Houston now, he's shortening his name. Andy Brennan, Mike Williams, Mark Ryan, Sean Smith, Dave Fleming, Lee Suter, Nick Brown. Hello, Nick. Dougal McWiggle. We've got John, and we've got John Patrick Huston as well. So we've got both of him tonight. Tom Jackson on YouTube. Hello, Tom. Mike Reeves. Hello, Mike. Paul Milligan, Simon Lewis. Hobby Time. Hello. Brian Wilton, Andy King, Jim Walter. Yep. So we got a good crowd here tonight. Staying coddling. Right. Update time. So, well, first of all, an update on updates. We didn't do a show on Wednesday because I had the day off. Because I'm still get the tiny violin out here. I'm still battling the after effects of COVID. It has really knocked me for six. And I had the day off, met up with my good friend, Timothy Maunder, I've known for a long time, 30 odd years or so. Tim used to be, Tim at one stage was a box artist for Italeri, and he still does a lot of stuff in the modeling industry. So it was nice to catch up with him and just mooch around trains for the day. And I was back down there yesterday because I'm desperately trying to use up my annual pass before the season ends. And that was nice as well. So anyway, but again, because of COVID, I wake up the next day and I'm just like absolutely shattered. In fact, I was so shattered. Yeah, shocking. I was so shattered this morning and shattered. I was so shattered this morning. I was so shattered this morning that I went downstairs, turned the iMac on, and actually started doing work before I looked at my watch and thought, well, it's 9 o'clock now, and then realised it was 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. I thought it was Monday. And I know people say that one of the things they've had with COVID is what they call brain fog. But honest to goodness, it's a shocker. So anyway, the Austin ambulance. Let's go to the there we go. We've got the workshop cameras working tonight. Hurrah! It's a Christmas miracle. Now, well, we have actually got some paint on it, and in fact, we had a really productive session this afternoon. I felt as though I was getting my chops back in, relatively speaking. Obviously, I was inspired by Spencer's splendid model that he started after me and finished before me. But you know, that's Spencer for you. So what we were doing today was we were dealing with some of the interior. Now, this is very much a work in progress, and I think I'll zoom in there. I painted the interior with, it was actually AK, it was their Cream Vice. It's the German interior color, which is a kind of like a slightly pale creamy color, and somebody said use that for the interior, and you know what, they were right. It's the perfect color. This will require more refinement. I probably need another pass over this with the cream vice again to knock back the shading. And what I'll probably do there is I will also put some either gloss or satin varnish in with the paint to give it a little bit more of a sheen when it comes to weathering, to kind of pull washes in and everything. But I mean, bearing in mind this is going to be buried in the interior, I could probably leave it as it is, but I just want to kind of knock it back a bit, because this is supposed to be an ambulance and this is supposed to be kind of like, you know, hygienic and everything. So, but that's the color. It's AK's cream vice. So we've done that panel there. We've done the same here. We've done that panel as well. That's probably a little bit too over the top, but again, we will tone that back a bit more. And the cab roof, again, we're just going to knock it back. And we've got the doors as well. And again, that's the cream vice on there. So that'll be another pass with some satin varnish as well to give it a little bit of a nice sheen and everything. And I also now see, you see that's the roof. Now that's what it looks like before I've actually kind of before I've actually started blending it. So what I did there was that's had a coat of cream vice, and then you can tell it was early in the day. I really did not have my airbrush eye in at all, and I didn't get the mix right, and it was too thick, and I was just like, oh, this is going to be one of those days. However, the thing is because I do this system whereby I put the base color down, then I will do some shading, then I'll go back with the base color again to knock it back. So the whole point is you're going back and you are knocking it back and knocking it back and knocking it back until it starts to become barely perceptible. So yeah, that's what it looked like this afternoon when I was like 5 minutes into the session and thinking, it's like I've never used an airbrush before. So we'll get around to sorting that out tomorrow. I would say I'd do it tonight, but what do you reckon? Do you think I should do it tonight? Have a think about that. And then I also got round to starting the benches and everything. This is just it's literally, I just undercoated them with my dirty weathering color. And then I will go over them with the cream vice again and start kind of blending that all in. That probably needs a bit more of the black brown color just as a base coat, and the same with that one there. But that's where we are with the ambulance, and I've also started doing some of the interior as well. But again, that was early on, and that was really kind of like raggedy airbrushing whilst I tried to remember how to use an airbrush. Some will say I still haven't learned how to use an airbrush, but there we go. So I reckon we will. We're going to slap some latex on and we're going to do some spraying. So whilst we're doing that, we'll field some more. We'll field some more questions here. We've got a good one here from Simon, and Simon Lewis says, "Would it be possible to clear up whether or not Tamiya XF paints will thin with water?" Nightshades, I think he means night shifts, video says no. Other videos say it will. Well, strictly speaking, you can thin them with water, but I have found sometimes that if you've already introduced another thinning element into the paint, it can start to kind of not bead, but it'll start separating out. But yeah, you most definitely can thin them with water, because in fact what we will do, I mean, I don't want to naysay Martin Kovac because he's a modeling god, but you can certainly thin them with water. So there we go. Let's do this. A jar of water. That's my universal jar of well, it's just a jar of water that sits in the workshop. Probably needs changing now. That's been there for a couple of days, but I'll just show you that yes, you can thin Tamiya paints with water. And let's pick a color. Pick a color, any color. Goodness me, I've got hundreds of them up here, and I'm going to pick a color. There we go. I'm going to pick XF70 dark yellow. That's a good one. This is where it all goes wrong, but let's get the lid off. Now, that's a fairly old, that's a fairly old jar. You can see it's all a bit congealed at the bottom there, but hello, Derp. No, you can't come into the workshop. Go away. I'm just trying to find something I can paint here. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, we'll just mix it in the jar here. So let me get, here we go. We've got a nice, these very nice Humbrol flat brushes, which I find to be excellent. Really, really, actually good quality brushes, believe it or not. And right, let's just get, that's a mixing receptacle there. Those are curry dishes from Poundland, would you believe? Kind of little chutney pots, I think they're called. So there you go. Bit of Tamiya XF60 in there. And then we will get a bit of water, just literally straight out the jar like so. Just drop a bit in there. And that proves a point, because that has done exactly what I didn't want it to do. And it started beading up and going all lumpy. Now, that is probably because I have already put lacquer thinner in there. So this could be where people start having problems, is if you've already got lacquer thinner in with the paint, I think the water reacts with the lacquer thinner. So there we go. So Martin is right in that respect, but I think we can, I'm just looking for a pure, unadulterated bottle of Tamiya acrylic here. Gotta have one here somewhere. What's one that I haven't opened? Probably that chrome silver. I don't think I've even opened that, so right, let's try thinning this with water again and see what happens. Put a bit of water in there. And as you can see, yeah, that has thinned with water, but that's because that is a pure jar and it's not had any other thinning agents kind of dropped in there at the moment. So I'm just going to try and find a AN kit part to have a paint here. Have I got one here? No, of course not. Oh, there we go. That'll do. My aircraft carrier base there, that's probably a little bit overly thinned, but I mean, I don't brush Tamiya acrylics as a general rule, but as you can see, it has thinned the paint. So I would say, and I'm going to stick my neck out here, please form an orderly queue. I'm going to say that if it's a brand new jar that you haven't put any other thinners in whatsoever, you probably can thin it with water. But I think the moment you start putting anything else in your acrylic paint, in your Tamiya paints, the chances are it's going to be that reacts to the paint, and it starts doing what we saw just now, is it suddenly all goes kind of cottage cheesy, I think is the best way of describing it. I'm just going to clean my workbench here a sec, because I managed to get some silver paint on the surface, which was remiss of me. But I'm using isopropyl alcohol, because the isopropyl alcohol will not remove the nice painted grid on my workbench, on my cutting mat. So, yeah, I've got it all over the place now. What a clot. Anyway, so yeah, you can do it. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to get some of the AK cream vice, which is here. They call it ivory, but I always call it cream vice. So, and we will, there we go. Let's get this set up under the camera here. Close enough. And we've got my airbrush here. And I also just need to, bear with me folks, preparation prevents poor performance, or something like that. Obviously tonight I haven't prepared because I've taken my rubber gloves off. So whilst I'm doing that, I'll field some more comments. John Connolly says, thank you again for a solo show. Now the controversy, dun, dun, dun. Now the controversy with Plasmo, Night Shift and others. Do we still need magazines when we have YouTube feeding us more details and information? I do believe it was Mr. David Fleming of this parish who once said that we probably still need magazines because you can't really kind of take a laptop into the toilet, to put it bluntly. And then Apple gave us the iPod, and then suddenly we've got smartphones and things. So that dates Dave's comment. He's going to deny he ever said that, but he said that. So I would say, no, I don't think so. It's a bit like, it's one of those things. People are always predicting the end of something, and it's like, well, this is going to be the end of, model making, and this is going to destroy this and whatever. And yet here we are, we're still here. So I would say, magazines serve a different purpose and they serve a different market. And as much as it's good fun to sit and watch videos, I don't think they will, not yet. But famous last words by JM there. But no, I don't think they will. I think magazines are going to be around a good while longer. It's just a different form. Some people like to read, read things. Some people like to watch things. And I would say that the other thing about reading is that you can pretty much read anywhere. You can read, I know you can read iPads and things anywhere, blah, 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 but you can read anywhere and you don't have to worry about batteries dying. So I don't know. I don't think they will supplant magazines just yet, in much the same way that people think that 3D printing is going to somehow kind of hasten the demise of the injection molded kit industry. No, I don't think so. And Roy Sutherland made that point this week as well. So no, you can't go up there. Out you go. Go on. Out, 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 out. Out. So no, I think magazines are going to be around for a lot longer. So here we go. We've got some cream vice here. And we've got a dirty great big lump of something on there as well. So I'm just going to go in there and start knocking back that absolutely shocking airbrushing that I did this morning. But the point of doing what I'm doing here is you start knocking it back until it's barely perceptible. And I know lots of people probably question this method, but we all model in different ways. And I've been doing it this way, or variations of this kind of method for a very long time, over 30 years, to be honest with you. So it works for me. And that's not to say I don't absorb other people's ideas and try other systems. So we're just going to carry on building up these this layers of these paints. This is probably thinned about 50-50, and again I've got the pressure dialed right down here, and I'm also letting the thinner do a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of drying times and everything. Oops, daisy, a little bit heavy there, but never mind. That'll flash off very quickly, and we don't have to worry about it. So if that was enamel, it'd be a different matter. So bit by bit by bit by bit by bit, we start knocking that back. And again, I was a little bit heavy there, but it being lacquer thinner, I don't have to worry about it. Right, we'll just do a little bit more here, and then we'll can it for this session. But it's just to show the principle that you're going in there and you are trying to blend everything back a bit more now. Like I say, where I was a little bit heavy-handed with the cream vice just now, it's actually started to kind of like it's just blended into the surface now, so that's not too much of a problem. So I'll just give it another. I'm rushing it a bit here as well, he said, making his excuses early, but it gives you an idea that with a little bit of care, you can do it with a bit more subtlety than what I'm doing at the moment. But I'm just showing you that it's the principle of the thing. So again, we're just going to knock that back a bit more. I know some people will pre-shade on a neutral color, then they'll go over it with a base color. I mean, it's one of these things. It's whatever works for you. There is no right way or wrong way. You do get modelers who like to kind of dictate that no, there's only one way you can do this, which is usually their way. But no, honestly, there isn't. It is purely down to what works for the individual modeler. You know the mantra, folks. Your workbench, your rules. And like I said, there's probably people watching me doing this and thinking, well, why are you doing it that way? That's a really, why not just go in there with some ammo of MIG shaders, which I've actually got up here on the shelf here. Why not go in there and just post shade everything? This is a mixture of kind of like pre-shading and post-shading, if you see what I mean. But as you can see, bit by bit, and again, this spraying pressure is so low that there's no overspray coming off this at all. I can't even smell the paint. And then you can just open the nozzle up a little bit more and then just start. And if you notice that I do go left to right and then I go up and down, I just like to vary the approach with the airbrush. And bearing in mind this is the roof, so I'm not that fussed if I don't get it absolutely spot on. But There we go. We rushed that a bit, but you can see how we've now really knocked that horrible airbrush work with the shading work that I did. That's now gone back to something that's really quite subtle and, well, relatively. And what we'll do is we'll just use up the rest of this paint. How much is left in there? Goodness me. Enough to paint a whole division of tanks, I think. Okie doke. Let's get that out there. I'll just go back to the inside of the cab roof here. And again, that's probably a little bit too heavy, so I'm just going to go in there and blendy, blendy, blend. There we go. Now there are still some bits on this that I need to paint cream vice, like these stretcher benches. I'm not going to paint them in their entirety tonight because I need to get on and do other things tonight. But here I'm doing a slightly different approach. I've kind of given it a dark coat to start off with. Then I'm going in and I'm kind of like filling in the middle areas to kind of leave some sections still in the darker color. Bear in mind that's going to be on the underside, so I always try and get my eye in on an area that's not going to get seen greatly. Yeah, we'll get around to painting them properly at some stage. And whilst I've still got a little bit of paint in here, I'm also going to try just do a little bit of blending on the interior before the paint runs out. Which will be any second now. He said half an hour later, still painting. Tum-de-dum-de-dum. That's it, we're run out of paint. Jolly good. So bear with me whilst I just go and grab my paint station. Oh, it's amazing. And there's my paint station. So right, that'll do. And then we just empty some of that into the cloth here, and then just give the brush a nice wipe over just to get rid of any nasty little blobs of paint that are on it. I'll give this a proper clean after the show, but it won't require that much more than what I'm doing at the moment. Whoops. Just give the needle a wipe. Back into the airbrush it goes. Bum, ba-dum, ba-dum. And that's it. That'll do. That will do for tonight. So, Mr. Bond, it's just... There we go. Oh, that's better. So yeah, so going back to what we were doing there, if you have a look, whoops, it says knocking his coffee all over the place now. There we go. So we've gone in there and we've really, really kind of blended that back quite a bit now. So that will hopefully, I mean, that's the roof. You're not going to see that much of the roof on the finished model, but it probably could do a little bit more blending, but that's it. That'll do. I'm not going to kind of like make a career out of one model. you know, just kind of like forever kind of faffing around with it, quite frankly. So that's all we need to do on that one. And like I say, we've also got the side panels and everything are, oops, they're done. So that they'll probably have a little bit more attention, but not much. So anyway, he's looking for a cleaning cloth here. And a memento, per favore. Goodness me, gets coffee everywhere. What a clot. There he is. There it is. Right, we're going to field some questions now. Probably mostly why. John Connolly says, love the fact you are appreciating while some of us are getting flack for doing it on aircraft. Well, to be honest with you, I don't even call this pre-shading. I just call it pre-shading. But the whole point of the approach that I try to take is, and we'll go back to the camera again, is I try and do it in a form whereby it's, you know, you really are trying to, oops a daisy, too much. You really are trying to kind of like knock it back to the point where it's barely perceptible. And some people will say, well, why do that at all? You know, if you can barely see it. Well, that's just the way we all individually make models. But yeah, that'll be, like I say, that'll be another light pass, and then that'll be it. That'll do. I'm not, like I say, I'm not going to be overly fussy with that. But it's, you do get this, and I've had this with modelers or some modelers who say, well, you know, nobody goes around on a real aeroplane with an airbrush and starts painting panel lines black and all that kind of thing. No, but then real aeroplanes are subject to intense kind of like G-forces and different environments and temperatures and ultraviolet light, which a model doesn't. You're not, I always think with modeling, you're not trying to be realistic in terms of how you're painting the model. You are trying to lend an impression of realism. And Martin Kovac says this as well, that sometimes you are pushing techniques that some people may take exception to because it's not realistic. But what you are imparting then is a sense of realism. You are actually imparting a story with the model. I know it sounds terribly pretentious, but it's a tricky one. When it's done really badly, to my mind, when it's done really badly, it does look quite cartoonish. But I will qualify that by saying, and I will dig out some pictures to share with you at a later date. When I first started doing pre-shading, post-shading, pre-shading, post-shading, shading, one form or the other. Sorry, I'm trying to get this cream vice lid back on. There we go. When I first started doing shading on my models, going back to, goodness me, 1991, you should see those models. They're horrific. They are absolutely atrocious. But over time, I started to refine the technique down again. And I think after about a year, the learning curve was, it was incredible. And Phil Artiste Studio, great name. He says, as an artist modeler, I agree, whatever works. I just got back into modeling after 30 plus years. Welcome back, Phil Artiste. All new again, learning to use an airbrush. Tests on plastic card styrene first has helped immensely. Just get a cheap model and use that as your test bed. Don't worry. I would say to you, Phil, if things go wrong, don't worry. I have projects that go wrong after, how many years do we reckon? 50? 50. After 50 years, I have projects that go wrong. You speak to Spencer Pollard. He has projects that have ended up under the crunch of his boots. Drew has projects that go wrong. We all sometimes make a model and we absolutely make a Horlicks of it. So don't be put off if that happens. If that happens to you, it's just, sometimes it's just like, right, it didn't work. Start again. build something new, learn from the experience. But it's good to have you back. So yeah, brilliant. Dave Fleming said it's breaking the illusion of a single color surface. Precisely, Dave. You know, and I've seen, you know, you can see people who build models correctly, and they're fine, but they're just as dull as ditch water. I'm sorry, you know, I'm just that's just how I feel. But again, it is down to the individual. If people want to build models and they don't want to weather them, that's fine. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't register on my radar one way or the other. I'm not offended by the fact that somebody builds a model and they build it absolutely pristine clean. Why should I be? It's not my model. So anyway, Sean Smith says, I seem to remember the late Ted Taylor never used to wear the hip planes. He didn't. And Ted is still one of those modelers that is a massive inspiration to me. I think sometimes you can look at stuff that is so precise and is so clean that you marvel at the precision of the finishing. And I will put into that bracket Paul Boyer of Fine Scale Modeler. Oh goodness me, his finishes are beautiful. I don't think I've ever seen Paul weather a model, but his work is it's fabulous. Just go have a drink here, folks. Sore throat. So there we go. Simon Lewis says that famous Thomas Edison quote, "I have not failed. I just found 10,000 ways that it won't work." Exactly. Andy King says, after 50 years of modeling, I'm also surprised when the project turns out well. Not the only one, Andy. And I'm just having a look. Just seeing here, Peter says, I use metho. I think you use methylated spirits for spraying as all I can get as a thinner, and water to use as a wash when mixing. Yep, that works. If that works. That's good for you. And Lox9 says, this is going back to the Tamiya. Can you thin Tamiya paints with water? Just painted some seats with semi-gloss black thin with water. It worked perfectly. So you can do it, but as I say, with Tamiya, if you've already got a thinning agent in there, the water may react with that thinning agent. So it could be Mr. Color thinners, it could be isopropyl alcohol. It all depends. I don't think there are any hard, fast rules, because as we showed tonight, I picked up one jar and the paint, it just turned into porridge. Picked up another one and it was fine. But the one that I picked up, the silver, hadn't had any other thinner in it at all, other than what Tamiya provided you with. So let's have a look. Blah 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 blah. Jim Altergott, he's talking about the cream vice, and he says, I like the color. JM must get a bottle of that. Sprays beautifully, Jim. I thin it with this stuff, which is Tamiya lacquer thinner, but I'm sure if I can thin it with you can thin it with isopropyl alcohol. You can thin it with the regular Tamiya lacquer thinner, the slow setting stuff. They're great paints. They really are. And MF Doomer TV, great name. He says, or they say, my buddies and I call it mid shading. Yeah, mid shade, just shading. You know, let's not go. You know, terms aren't really that important. But here we go. Mike Williams says, Mike Grant is another fine model with little or no weathering and evidence. Precision is key for his finishes. They're immaculate and in turn inspiring. Mike Grant isn't human. His models are so utterly fabulous. I'm sure he's some kind of super being, really. He is just absolutely he's absolutely fabulous. Here's a good one. Lox9 says car modelers don't weather them. Why? Well, some car modelers don't. You may remember Jen Wright, when she built that Mercedes rally car, it was the Italy reissue of the Eschi kit. It was a model that was sat in a kit that was sat in my workshop for a few weeks, and then Jen said, "Have you got anything to build?" And I said, "Well, have this one, Jen." And she just did a far, far, far better job of it than I ever could. And Spencer, with his, I think it was his Nissan or his Toyota, it was one of those Tamiya little sports cars. He weathered that as well. Obviously not like a tank, but just gave it a little dust patches here and there. And I actually think that when you see cars that are weathered, they do look good. They do look nice. I'll talk of the devil. There he is. Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, last year I was gonna weather my beach buggy, but then I was enjoying it so much I thought I don't want to stuff it up now by trying to weather it. So here we go. Just that was his Lotus. Thank you. Spencer's Lotus was lightly weathered. So right. We will, yeah, Brian Wilton, Lotus. Yes, I should know that. I'm a big James Bond fan. I know it's not a Bond car, but you know what I mean. Right. Now, here, around here somewhere, this is another project I've got on the go at the moment, which I actually started kind of like a year or so ago. Let me just wipe the coffee off this. Goodness me. Well, not coffee, barley cup, but you know what I mean. Now, this was a project I started. I actually bought this a year or two back. Yeah, I love these kits. When Airfix introduced these in the early to mid 1970s, this was their attempt to kind of hit back at the Hysterex market. And so they did these, they did the polybagged ones, so the blister packed ones, and they did these in the boxes. And to this day, I just think this packaging is fabulous. These weren't standard kit boxes. I like the white kind of background on it. Very, very classy looking, especially with the grey on the side. Also, a black logo. So Airfix did this a lot in the 70s. That they would do, the logo would actually match whatever the key color was on a particular box. So if it was something that was where the swash on the box was, say, brown, the logo would be brown. So it was quite a movable feast with the Airfix logo in the 70s. But these, I love these. And I mean, not only would I like to see these come back as kits anyway, I'd like to see them come back in something akin to this packaging, and you know, because I think it's just beautiful. Anyway, look, I have actually started this. So let's have a look. Let's see how old George is getting on here at the moment. And we've got part of his horse done. So this is like I say, this is a fun project I wanted to do. Build it for a friend of mine, actually. But yeah, we've actually dealt with the seams on the upper seams on this one. But yeah, got that bit done on the horse at the moment. I'm sure George Washington's horse had a name, but I don't know what it was. And what else have we done here? We've got George's legs together, and in fact, there we go. We will. I think these were sculpted by a guy called either Ron Cameron or Roy Cameron, but he was an absolute genius when it came to doing this stuff. And there we go. A presidential head. So we've got that. And then the only other bits and pieces I've got to do on this are obviously all the bridal accessories, deal his arms, his tricorn hat, of course, bag, saddle. We've got the mane there and the tail and everything. So, and also clean up the seams on the saddle. So probably a couple of evenings work, and this would be heading towards the paint booth. And also, let's just have a word, just give a shout out to the instructions, because these are beautifully minimalist, but brilliantly done. So they give you lengths here for cutting the strips of plastic sheet that they give you in here, 5 thou plastic sheet. And there you go. There's the horse. There's George. There's the saddles. There's all the other bits and pieces, and that's it. Six steps. It's done. And then you get the painting guide here, which kind of gives you a rough idea of how to paint it. It's not massively detailed painting instructions, but it's close enough. You know, I think we can probably look at that and think, right, I think we can guess what the colors are and mix our own colors from, you know, Vallejo acrylics or other brands are available. But yeah, it was a project that I was building for a friend, and I need to pick up on it again. And I'm loving it. And like I say, I love these Airfix 54mm collector's series figures. I've actually got an English pikeman up on the other shelf there, which I was going to convert into a pikeman. There we go. I was going to convert it into a pikeman from the Sedgemoor uprising of 1685, which was fought just down the road here. But then I started looking at it and I thought, oh, it's just like going to get too complicated with this. And I thought, no, I'm just going to build it straight out of the box. So that's precisely what I'm going to be doing with that one. Build straight out of the box relative to the fact that I still haven't actually got around to getting halfway through it. But yeah, those figures, absolutely brilliant. I'd love to see them come back again, either individually or as a boxed set. So obviously, if anybody from Airfix watching tonight, that's a free idea for you. Paul Dunham says the Airfix horses are much better than Hysterex. True. I've got a Hysterex figure. I bought it 3 years ago. I don't think instruction sheets were really Hysterex's forte, to use a French word. It's beautifully molded, but absolutely no idea where half these bits go. And in fact, I'm sure Hysterex tended to include like a generic sprue of things like buckles and you know, kind of like accessories, which went through all the kits. So yeah, I kind of looked at it and thought, right, okay, this really does involve a bit of research. Really, it's Dave Fleming. Here we go. Dave Fleming says George Washington's favorite horse was called Nelson. There we go. And Simon Lewis says, looking for 1/35th scale World War II German small arms rifle sets that are placed around vehicles. I looked at the Tamiya ICM sets. Any more out there worth considering? Well, Simon, you know we're going to do this. Of course, it's the favorite manufacturer, one of the favorite manufacturers of this brand, show, broadcast, Mini Art. Check the Mini Art catalogue out. I've got, it's just over there, but I'm not going to uncouple myself to go and get them. Mini Art, they do German small arms, everything. They do whole things of World War II German weapons. So I would say go and check the Mini Art catalogue. You can actually download it online, but yeah, I go Mini Art, to be honest with you, for World War II German small arms. In fact, they do several boxes of them. I think do you know what we'll do? We will, and Master Box, yeah. Lox9 says Master Box. Honestly, Mini Art, yeah. Steve Moore says food and fruit, yeah. Bottles, pigeons, you name it. Mini Art. Let's just have a quick look, see if I can find Mini Art, World War II German weapons. What have we got here? Oh my goodness me. Well, Mini Art models, here we go. We've just called up their website. Bear with a sec. Here we go. Right, here we go. Simon, this might be what you are looking for. Share screen, Chrome tab. That is probably what you are looking for. So there we go. I mean, this is one of several sets that they do. So there you go. You also got ammo pouches, helmets, entrenching tools, everything. Nice painting guide. You get maps and magazines that you can cut out of the box. Well, I mean, look, they name everything as well, which is good. That's what I like about Mini Art. And helmets, camera, spectacles, water gas mask containers, rather, water bottles. Just brilliant. Schmeiser submachine guns, heavy machine guns, decals as well, some photo etch bits for the spectacles and other bits and pieces and badges. I would go and have a look at Mini Art, Simon. They are absolutely, this is why we're always raving about Mini Art on this show, but they are absolutely fabulous for this kind of stuff. So yeah, I go to Mini Art. There we go. Oh, here's a question. John Connolly says, JM, that's me. Out of curiosity, would you pick the Harrier or the new Spitfire in 1/24? The Spitfire. I'll tell you why. Because I built 2 of the Harriers back in 2000, which is, what's 2000, Derp? 22 years ago? 22 years ago. Yeah, built 2 of them. And so I've done them. So I build the new Spitfire. It's absolutely fabulous. Really terrific kit. It really is. Stan says Italy did some weapon sets on eBay. Yeah. Dragon has some sets of World War II infantry weapons. That's Jim Aldercott. Yeah, you can't go wrong with these. You know, with finding weapons. It's we'll put out to security services. I'm talking about scale plastic model weapons. Yeah, so yeah, you can get them, no problem whatsoever. John Kelly says, what does 54mm refer to? It refers to something, John, and I completely forget what it is. I think it's 54mm was the height of the figure, which here is a ruler, and I think it just meant that 54mm equated to the average height of a figure in that scale. So yeah, while I didn't say 32nd scale, I don't know, but the 32nd scale or 35th scale, it all depends. All depends how fussy you are. Let's have a quick look through some of the other comments here, and then we'll show you a book. Lox9 says, bags of potatoes. Get the comment up. Bags of potatoes, bag of flour, and some farm foods. Yep. Dave Fleming says, there we go, height of the figure. Yeah, 54mm. Paul Milligan says, how's the 24 scale Spitfire going, JM? Well, it's going. Whether I'm going to get it finished in time, probably not, because COVID knocked me sideways. So I need to get the ambulance done. That's new and that's fresh and that's current. If I finish the Spitfire later, I finish the Spitfire later. It's, what can I say? I failed, but it was a noble failure. It's not a failure yet. It's just a delayed victory, I think is the best way of putting it. And Andy King says 54mm refers to the height of the figure, also 1/32 scale. Although I don't know what I'd be. I'd probably be 1/30th scale if you scaled me up, because I'm 6 foot, almost 6'3". So if 5'11" is an average male height, then I don't know. And Brian Wilton says, what about the tempo? Well, I'm going as fast as I can, Brian. What about the tempo? Tempo I'm still working on, but again, it's just you know, it's fallen by the wayside as other projects. As let's put it this way, the tempo is a me project, but when I get stuff shoved in front of me and told, can you build this, can you build this, the me projects get pushed aside, which explains why my special hobby, 32nd scale Westland Whirlwind, hasn't got much farther than I did than we did last year. So yeah, exactly. Rob Herring, good point, Rob. He says Hysterex were 54mm to the eyes. They are 1/30th scale. Yeah, but a lot of people kind of pick them up for you know, pick them for the accessories and things. So again, this whole thing about you don't mix scales, well, a lot of modelers have been doing it down the years. So you know, I just don't worry about it. And Steve Moores, that's a good idea, Steve. He says, bring the spit to Telford, we'll all do a bit. Might even get to that, Steve, honestly. Right, let's talk about a book now. An old book. Oh, went a bit Terry Wogan there for a second. This is I picked this up at the railway station at Watch It on Saturday. or was it Wednesday last week? I can't remember. Yeah, Wednesday last week. Anyway, it is, hang about, let's get the camera working. There we go. It was a book called Next Steps in Railway Modelling by, of course, my spiritual lord, Chris Ellis. They had loads of model railway books in the second-hand bookshop at Watchet Station, and I could have bought them all, but unfortunately I'd have had to have carried them with me all day. So I'm going to wait until I'm passing there in the car and have a good look. But as you can see, this cost me the whopping amount of £2. And this was a Midland publication and imprint of Ian Allen Publishing. But I mean, like I say, I have a passing interest in model railways, having been messing around on a steam railway this year, on a heritage railway this year. I do actually have an Airfix Pug, or should I say a Rosebud Kitmaster Pug, which I want to build into a little vignette of sorts. In terms of like working layouts, that's probably not my kind of meat and potatoes, or my cream tea, in fact. But no, this, I'm just a sucker for modelling books and anything by Chris Ellis, obviously. And this is, it's great. There's always going to be a little trick or a technique or something that will that will be useful further down the road. I'm not going to go through every single page here, but for £2, I was cock a hoop. I was reading this on the way back. So here we go. This is foam board. This is not what's known as kappa board, but it's foam board. And he's talking here about constructing stuff out of foam board and whatever, which at the time would have been quite a novel kind of idea, given that most people were still using kind of wood and hardboard and stuff. But yeah, I Chris Ellis, he's just, I never met the guy apart from in passing, but I would like to meet him at some stage, because aside from my father in terms of modeling and my mother in terms of her support, but in terms of somebody who was was just there for me to dip into for ideas and inspiration, Chris Ellis still is my kind of go-to sensei, so to speak. He is just he's great, and yeah, I absolutely adore his work, and I like his approach. I love his writing as well. I think he taught me more about writing than my English teachers did at school. And yeah, well, that was just a fantastic little bargain for £2 at Watchet Station. And like I say, they've got plenty of other railway modelling books there, including How to Go Railway Modelling by Norman Simmons, of which I picked up a copy for Tim. But there are other ones there as well. And it's just, yeah, it's I love secondhand bookshops. It's great. So anyway, Bill Clark says the model railway bug is infectious. It is. Although, like I say, I'm more interested in doing them as static models. And do you know what? I'd still like to. This is like, on top of the bucket list of all the other models I'd like to do that I would never get built until the year 2054 or something, 2154, is I'd like to build one of those Trumpeter 35th scale German World War II locos. They're great big things. I'd love to do something like that, but and in fact, obviously, I've got, Spencer will be reminding me this after the show, I've got the, is it Trumpeter or something? Yeah, I think no, Dragon. It's the Dragon Leopold railway gun, which kind of mirrors the model my mum bought me when I was 13 for my 13th birthday, which was the Hasegawa one in 72nd scale. But obviously, the Dragon one is 35th scale. But yeah, railways, you see, you can leave them behind, but they're always there as an interest. And he says, this is Lox9, he says, Chris Ellis, The Scale Modeller's Handbook, great read. You can still pick it up online. got a copy. In fact, I've got Chris Ellis's other book on modelling aircraft. I think Spencer got a copy of that the other year as well. So and what we got here? We got Brian Wilton says, just been using Despy CA glue, instant non-fogging. Wow, just found my new best tool / glue. That's interesting, and we are the interesting modelling company. So I'll have to have a look out for that and see about getting some of that and testing it on the show, because that sounds jolly interesting. That does. And Lox9 says, only recently they bought out the Tempo, this is Mini Art, bought out the Tempo A400 Lieferwagen vegetable delivery van. Yeah, I would say the only thing that's, it's not even a criticism of the kit. There was a comment on the Tamiya Facebook page over the weekend from somebody who essentially said, I've been looking at kits by other manufacturers and Tamiya need to up their game. Okay. Now, the thing is I think Mini Art are a very good example of this, because you could get Mini Art and Tamiya tackling the same subject. The Mini Art one will be infinitely more complex, and they will take things and break them down into separate pieces in order to get the maximum amount of molding, maximum amount of detail into the kit. So rather than molding something in one part, they'll break it down into 4 parts, and you have to kind of stack up the plastic to do it. Nothing wrong with that approach. That's Mini Art's approach. But Tamiya's approach is they'll go for as much detail as they deem, not going to say adequate, because that sounds like a cop-out, necessary. And I think Tamiya's emphasis is on making models that can be built. And I think if there's one observation about some of the Mini Art kits, is they're beautiful. Honestly, I've built a couple. They are beautiful, but they are time consuming. And certainly that Tempo is time consuming, because I've been at it for 6 months now. But yeah, they do require your attention, and they do require a certain modicum of skill and experience to get together, because sometimes and some of the other Lox builders here, some of the other Tempo builders here will probably echo the same thing, that little Tempo, it's beautiful, I love it, but you can be sat there sometimes for half an hour trying to work out, well, how exactly does that part orientate rather, and how does that actually kind of lock onto that? And and especially with engines, with Mini Art kits, you are sat there trying to work out, you've beautifully illustrated, but they can sometimes not be as straightforward as they want to be. Whereas with a Tamiya kit, they take all the guesswork out, and they will, if there is anything that is an area of contention, they will show you a scrap view or whatever. So I do believe, yes, there are kit companies out there that produce models that have more parts and ergo can be seen as being more detailed than Tamiya. But I think Tamiya's strength is their models, by and large, are easy to build. A beginner or intermediate modeler can make a decent fist of a Tamiya kit. I don't think they'd be able to do that with a Mini Art kit. Even something without any tracks and things, because Mini Art don't make kits for that particular market, so to speak. So it's not a criticism. It's just horses for courses. Different different kind of like market expectations. Sean Smith, there we go. Sean says, too many parts in the Tempo. I'm reserved judgment when I get to the end of it, but there are a lot of teeny weeny parts. Andy Kingston, I'm building the Mini Art 135 Fisco German L1500S truck and trailer, and it's very in-depth and time-consuming. Great detail, don't get me wrong, but it's not a quick build. Yeah, absolutely. And Lox9 says those Gecko kits aren't that far off mini art kits either. Yeah, exactly. It's like I say, it's Tamiya have a business model, and I think the idea that somehow Tamiya need to up their game. Obviously, if they're doing things wrong, yes, a certain amount of constructive criticism is there. But in terms of their business approach, I can see why modelers may think that, but I would respectfully disagree. I think that's a good way of putting that, and that's it. And Dave says mini art pigeons are very fiddly. Yeah, absolutely, but at least they don't pull on your hand, so that's a benefit. Right, we're going to wrap this up for now because we've had quite a smorgasbord of stuff tonight. I'm just seeing what other Lox9 says. I got some Masterbox camels with Monty or mini art, maybe they say. Fair enough. And just having a look through some of the other comments here. Blah 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 blah. No, I think we're up to date. Actually, I think we are. Lox9 said, well, that's an interesting comment. They say might alienate people from Tamiya kits. I don't quite know what you mean by that. I can't see Tamiya kits alienating people. I can see complex kits alienating people, but clarify what that means, Lox, and we'll come back and talk about it in a second. Well, precisely. No, I don't think it's a case of not knowing what they're talking about. I think sometimes people have a very that is their fixed view on what the hobby's like, and they see this kit company and they're saying, well, why aren't other kit companies like this kit company? Well, kit companies they vary. They have different ideas and expectations and business models and everything, pardon the pun, business models and things. Somehow this idea that all kit companies must conform to this one standard. And it's like, well, no, not really. Right, there we go. Yeah, all right. Lox says if they made them more complex with more parts. Yes, precisely. Yeah, Tamiya made their kits more complex with more parts. They would, I genuinely believe they would start alienating a lot of people. But bear in mind that, again, Tamiya in Japan, a lot of people who build Tamiya kits aren't necessarily enthusiasts. They're just people who like building kits. So, this whole thing about, start including this and this and this and this and this and do individual track links and blah, blah, blah. I think a lot of us who have built models with individual track links would like to sit that experience out for a few months or so. And I'm just seeing there's a comment here. Here we go. Building the Tamiya T55, 300 parts, mini art, 1,500. Don't get me wrong, the mini art one is beautiful and that's fantastic value for money, but they're servicing different parts of the modeling community, essentially. And MF Doomer says, I've just finished building a 135 scale Jag Panther with full interior. Do you have any resources for finding out what colors belong inside of it? I'd say if you've just finished it, we're probably a bit late for that, Doomer, but go online. There's bound to be somebody somewhere has published a photo kind of essay, a walk around or a walk in around of a Jag Panther interior. There are some books out there that deal with these kinds of things. I can't think who the publishers are, but they are illustrated, but they're illustrated with kind of like CGI renders of the interiors. But they do tend to get nail them with the colors. So I think the best advice would be Google. In fact, we'll just do it right now. Jag Panther interior. Let's see what we find. Well, there we go. I've just gone on to Google, and there are pictures there of Jagdpanther interiors. So Google is your friend. I'm just seeing what other things here. Blah 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 blah. Cream Vice, yes, Cream Vice probably would be Cream Vice in a Jagdpanther, but sometimes they were the exterior color as well. So Google, just have a Google. There we go. Andy King says the Jagdpanther had ivory upper surfaces and red brown floor and lower surfaces. I'm so glad you people are absolutely on the ball here. I'm not. I've got COVID brain fog, so there we go. I'm just seeing what other bits and pieces that we can do whilst we're here before we sign off for the evening. Jim says, Tamiya's engineering and simplicity of the build process is what separates them from everybody else. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. And Dave Fleming says horses for courses, and Bill Clark says and different budgets. Again, absolutely spot on. And Herman Handbrush says, I like Tamiya kits a lot. I wish they made car kits from the 1960s and earlier. Yeah, I think they do a couple, but not that many. Obviously do a Mini Cooper, but you know, greatest car ever made, clearly. Right, that's it for tonight, folks. I need to go and have something to drink now because well, I've got something to drink here, but my throat is still struggling after COVID, so bear with me a second. And I think, as I said at the beginning, although I haven't been testing positive now for the best part of 2 weeks, it's just knocked the stuffing out of me. I still feel as though I'm dragging a lead weight behind me. And as I say, in terms of mental, clarity and everything, people have referred to COVID brain fog. It's not fun. If you didn't tune in at the beginning of the show, I was up early today because I woke up and I thought, right, let's get on with some work. I've got a lot of work to do this week. And I got up and I was in the office and I was working away. And then I looked at the time, and I've been working for about an hour and a half, and then noticed it was a Sunday. That's how it gets you, folks. So we will be back on Wednesday with a bit of luck. A rarity this week. It's not a Wednesday where I'm mucking about on steam railways, because I really do need to get some work, get a couple of projects absolutely banged out of the park now. But we'll probably be back on Wednesday evening, and hopefully we'll have a bit more done on the Austin, including getting all this interior painted and buttoned up and everything. So yeah, we will try and be back on Wednesday. I'll see if Drew's not up to doing a show. I think Spencer is otherwise engaged on Wednesdays for the short term. I'll see if I can rope in some other another loyal follower. If not, be a JMQ again, which I don't mind. I haven't got those two interrupting me. So anyway, that's pretty much it for tonight. Obviously, yeah, Ryefield models can be a handful as well, says Lox9. Yeah, again, brilliant kits, but goodness me, they can be absolutely mad with the old detailed head. Thank you, Phil. He says, regards to Drew and Spence, great to see you back and feeling better. I wouldn't say I'm feeling better, Phil, but I'm feeling more upright. Let's put it that way. More rather than being horizontal. Actually, no, that's a lie. I was still up and about and working when I had COVID, but like I say, there were 2 days where I can't remember a single thing, but I finished projects and I did the washing and the washing up and fed the cat. Can't remember a thing about that, honestly. Anyway, on that note, on that slightly confusing note, we will be back on Wednesday. Hopefully, we'll get the boys back in the studio, relatively speaking, because there's lots of new kits we need to talk about, and I don't want to talk about them by myself. But obviously, we've had the Tamiya F35A, which we're hopefully going to get hold of a sample quite soon, relatively soon. There's been some other stuff, brain fog, forgotten what they are now. But again, just so much happening in this hobby. You can't keep up with it. It's really absolutely incredible. Anyway, on that note, as always, stay safe, stay out of trouble, and we will be back with you midweek at some point. So until then, see you later. Bye for now.